Hey everybody, so I know I've been gone for a week, and I promise we are going to be significantly more consistent very, very soon, as in this week, starting the consistency. But basically, I had a couple of you guys on Instagram ask me about doing some like cooking videos, and I asked, do you guys want to see cooking videos? And some of y'all said yes, because y'all know I be cooking. I bake a lot. I love making pies. I love making banana bread. I just bake a lot. So I have a recipe that we're going to be doing today, and it is going to be a bourbon chocolate pecan pie. So I live in Kentucky. Bourbon's like big here. I like to cook with a lot of bourbon, and so that's what we're gonna do today. I like to make my pecan pies with just like a splash of bourbon in them, or my banana bread with bourbon in it. And so what we're doing today is we're making this chocolate pecan pie with bourbon in it. And so yeah, if you want to see how I make this amazing dish, because Thanksgiving is going to be here in like 2 days, and this is like one of the best things to bring to Thanksgiving, then stay tuned. All right, so a couple things you're gonna need. You're going to need pie crust. You can use the pre-made one, which I have here, which will make your life easier if you don't have to make it yourself, or you can make it yourself. This is a deep dish pie pan. That's what you're going to need. You are going to need pecans. You can have crushed pecans. You can have pecan halves. It doesn't matter. You just need at least 1.5 cups of pecans. So then you're going to need chocolate chips. You can have literally the smallest amount of these, and it's going to make a difference. I don't even measure these. I just do like a handful to like a little under a handful, half a handful, 2 handfuls. Depends on how much you like chocolate, and depends on how you're feeling. It really doesn't matter. So I'll show you how much of this I use in a minute. You're going to need vanilla. You're going to need Karo syrup. And I have dark and light. I almost never use dark, but for this specific recipe, I decided to use dark. You don't have to do this, okay? So you can just go ahead with your light corn syrup. Nothing will be affected. I just prefer to use light over dark. I don't know, but we're mixing these two today. So these are what you're gonna need. You're gonna need bourbon, and this is the last little bit of bourbon that's sitting around this house, and it's Woodford Reserve. I don't specifically care what kind of bourbon you use. You can use really cheap bourbon. You can use, I wouldn't use expensive bourbon when you're cooking, because you're not gonna get anything out of it unless you are making some type of sauce to put over top of your dessert, where it's actually going to hold the alcohol content. When you cook alcohol, all of the alcohol cooks out, so you're not getting anything from this other than the taste. And if you ever forget vanilla, you can use extra bourbon. Like if you were to forget your vanilla extract, what I did the other day when I made this pie, I forgot the vanilla, so I used like a decent amount of extra bourbon, and it kind of like covers the taste. And then the fact that you're using chocolate, it all works out. So anyways, let's get started. So you're gonna get a cup of this sugar. And you're gonna use half and half. So one, like basically a half of the black and a half of this, but you need 1.5 cups of Cairo syrup for this specific recipe. In most recipes, they say you just need 1 cup of Cairo syrup. So I'm using a little bit more than your average. So this is 1/2 cup. So that's like 1. And then you basically are going to take, I fill half of it with this, with the dark, and then I fill the other half of the cup with the light, to where it's like, basically you get a very even 1.5 amount cup, and you just pour that in. A spoon to get all the extra ingredients out. What you're gonna do, you're gonna stir it together. You can see what it looks like. It looks like caramel. I would not eat this raw. And you're gonna put it on the stove. So you're going to put it on the stove and you're gonna let all the granulated sugar melt into the Cairo syrup. You're gonna keep stirring. You only put it on the stove for 2 to 4 minutes, and then you take it off the stove and you let it cool. Okay, so we're stirring. We have it on like a medium heat. You need to stir until all the granulated sugar is dissolved and everything is just kind of like smooth in texture. So I forgot to mention in the beginning, you're obviously gonna need eggs. You're making a freaking pie, obviously. So you're gonna need 4 eggs for this recipe. And another thing, you need to make sure your butter is at room temperature, because your butter is going to need to melt. You're gonna have to have melted butter, and it's just easier to have melted butter when it's already at room temperature, so that you can like melt it and it won't get scalding hot and like fry your eggs. The whole thing about putting the sugar on the stove, which I have to take off the stove in a minute, is that you cannot let it get too hot, because then it'll take too long to cool. So crack your 4 eggs, and the sugar is super watery. This is our sugar mixture, Cairo syrup and granulated sugar. It's super watery. That's what it needs to be. You don't need to be like having any kind of, you can't see the granulated sugar because it's melted into the Cairo syrup. So sugar is super watery. It is ready to just sit and cool. You have to make sure this cools, because if you don't, you will mess your whole pie up. You will fry your eggs. When you put this into the egg mixture, you will fry your eggs and it'll be a hot mess and your pie will taste like crap. So you need like a bowl this size, all right? And so we're gonna crack 4 eggs and mix them up, add the butter in. So what you should do first, so you need this bowl. What you should do first, in my opinion, is probably melt this butter. You need 1/2 stick of butter, melt it, and then crack your eggs. Make sure the melted butter is not scalding hot, because if the melted butter is hot and you put your eggs into it, you're gonna fry your eggs. The whole thing that you don't wanna do, you wanna make sure your sugar cools, make sure your butter cools. This recipe is a really quick recipe, but you have to make sure that things don't fry the eggs, you know, because nothing's worse than a pie that has like fried egg. It just won't turn out right. Trust me. So actually put this butter in the microwave for 10 seconds, and then I'm gonna stir it around until it's completely melted. I never cook with a mixer, you guys. I never cook with a mixer. So I'm just gonna stir this butter around until all parts of it are melted. I never use a mixer I hand mix everything that I make. So even if I'm beating eggs or like having to make like something like Belgian waffles, I make everything by hand. Part of it's because I don't own a mixer, and another part of it is I feel like everything is just better when you mix it by hand because it shows that you put more love into it. But if you don't want to mix it by hand, don't. But I feel like it's always better to mix stuff by hand. I don't know why. So it really doesn't matter the order you do this last part in. We are going to mix the eggs into the butter and add the vanilla afterwards. Try not to, oh my God. It's covered in butter. Oh my God. Woo! Okay, we don't have any eggshell in it. It's just the eggshell is covered in butter, so it's slippery. So, you know you're doing this right and everything was at the right temperature when the eggs look fluffy, when they don't look like you just cooked half of them. Okay, so you want this mixture to be like a fluffy looking one. It's just a lot of butter and eggs, so it should just look very yellow, very almost fluffy. I don't know. That's just how I'm gonna describe it. We take this sugar mixture, which actually, as of right now, kind of looks like caramel. You're going to have to mix this very, very fast. So when you're getting ready to pour the sugar into the egg mixture, be prepared to mix like the wind, bullseye. Like you're gonna have to mix really fast. So if you already have a hand mixer or whatever, the thing that does it automatically, go for it. But I do everything by hand, so just be prepared to mix really fast. When you add the sugar into the egg mixture, you have to, or you won't be happy. But mixing like this works for me, and you'll just see this color gradually start to change. So this is when you know it's all mixed together, when the color has changed. Oh, we're almost done. Now the easy part. We're just going to add vanilla, bourbon. This is what I'm using. This is my vanilla extract. And then you're gonna use this bourbon. This is my bourbon. You don't need a lot of this. When it comes to how much bourbon you should put in, it depends on just how you feel. You know, just go with what your heart tells you. A recipe will tell you like 1 teaspoon to, actually it'll tell you like 1 tablespoon. I'm gonna probably put almost this whole thing of bourbon in. This is like a full shot. This is probably a little bit more than a full shot. And when you need 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. If you don't have vanilla extract, add more bourbon, or you could use honey, or you could use extra chocolate chips. It'll just cover the fact that you forgot your vanilla. But 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. 1 teaspoon. And we're just gonna fill it up halfway for the half. Most people actually have the half a teaspoon, but I'm lazy. I don't feel like getting it out of the drawer. And then for bourbon, we're going to take, let me just find, I'm just gonna take like a spoonful and then probably add more. Actually, no, we're just gonna, that's good. I can really smell it. I'm like, oh, I hate drinking bourbon. So like the fact that I think I added enough. It smells like bourbon, and actually it should smell like bourbon. So just FYI, if you're making a bourbon chocolate pecan pie, it should smell like bourbon for sure. Now, these are just the semi-sweet chocolate chips. I'm gonna take a handful of these. That's all of the chocolate chips that I'm adding. All right, so I put like, I don't know, like a handful, and my hands are kind of like medium sized. So just FYI, the amount of chocolate chips doesn't matter, because when it melts, they're going to flavor the whole pie regardless of like how much you add. Now, if you add a lot, like 2.5 handfuls, then you might as well just make a chocolate pie. So I would just stick to 1 handful or half a cup. That's how much like 1 handful is for me. And these are actually already starting to melt. So as soon as I put it in, it's like already starting to melt. And now you have this delicious, I don't know if you guys have ever tried like a bourbon ball, but this is like bourbon ball vibes all the way. Like all the way. You want to add a cup of pecans. This is 1 cup. I will add a cup and then I'll add like half a cup afterwards, just to kind of like place them specifically around the pie in a specific design. You don't have to do it. It just depends. A cup to a cup and a half is how many pecans you should probably add. Do we see how like delicious this looks? So this is what it looks like. And I don't know about y'all, but I think this looks so yummy. So I am gonna add some more pecans. It just looks like it's lonely. It looks like it needs more. You get your pie crust. You pour it all in. the final look. So once it's all done, you put it in the oven for 45 minutes to an hour. Basically, if you tap it, when it doesn't jiggle, like it has a whole bunch of liquid at the bottom, then you can take it out. So this is what it should look like when it's done. You see all that? And if you tap it, it's a little jiggly. Now it's gonna be like full at the top right there at first, and then it's going to fall. So this is the final result. It smells so good. Now you really can't smell the bourbon that much because once you cook it, like I said, all the alcohol content cooks out of it when it's done, but you're left with a very caramely smell. So it smells like caramel, basically. So for me, in my opinion, this is one of the easiest pies that you can make, and it always turns out good. So I'm about to put aluminum foil on top of this, and we're not touching it for 2 more days until Thanksgiving. But hope you guys like this video. If you want more cooking videos, like this video, share this video, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.